Greetings to you all in our series of study and analysis of novels. And today we are going to be looking at A Grain of Wheat by Ngugi Wa Thiong'o. Ngugi Wa Thiong'o is one of the foremost African writers who has written a lot of novels, and one of it is A Grain of Wheat. Another is Petals of Blood. But today we are going to be looking at A Grain of Wheat. We are going to be discussing the summary and the analysis of the plot of the novel. The novel is about the struggle of the Kenyans during the colonial period and the fight for freedom, the fight for independence, which is commonly called Uhuru in Kenya society. So we are going to be looking at the novel, and the event of the novel took place in the days of 1963, which was the period of independence of Kenya, and also before the independence, and before they were liberated from the colonial British colonialists. And most African countries have their independence through dialogue, roundtable dialogue, but Kenya, it was not so. The independence of Kenya was gotten through blood, through fight, through war. There were a lot of fighting to get the colonialists away from the Kenya, the British colonialists away from the Kenya society, so that the people will have a self-government. So we saw that the novel features a lot of flashback as well. Some of the events that took place were a flashback of the struggles before the time of independence. And then we saw that the novel started with a character called Mugo, an introverted villager of Tabai. He does not want to give a speech during the independence, during Uhuru, and even though the town elders asked him to do that. So we saw that the villagers consider him to be a hero, but he decided not to give a speech. He does not take himself as a hero. And note that through flashback, we made to understand that Mugo has been in detention for a long time because of his struggle for independence, and several other agitators were imprisoned by the British colonialists at that time. So we saw that Mugo does not want to give a speech during that period. And then we also saw that the villagers think him to be a hero because of his courage while he was in detention during Kenya's emergency. And then also he labors under a secret. He betrayed their beloved Mau fighters. So we saw also that another character, which is called Kihika, he joined the Mau struggle. The Mau is a group of fighters, the group of Kenyans who are dissatisfied with the colonial exploitation, and they were fighting to rescue the country Kenya from the colonialists, from the colonial masters. And then we saw that Kihika, a character, joined the Mau as a young man, and then he attained fame for capturing the police garrison. You know, it was war. The colonialist army and police were fighting the group of people who are also asking for independence, which are called Mau. And we saw that Kihika got a great fame among the people and among Kenyans because he was able to neutralize a police garrison at Mahi, and then killing the cruel district officer, which is called Robinson. But after Mugo betrayed him in secret, he was captured and hanged. He was killed. Kihika was killed. And then we also saw that those planning the independence want to honor Kihika because he was one of the heroes, a martyr for the freedom of his people. And Mugo had betrayed Kihika because he was unsettled by the young man Z, and because of the reward offered for his head. Now, through flashback, we also understand that the colonial government has placed a huge reward on the head of Kihika, that whoever gets him will be handsomely rewarded. And at the same time, Kihika has gotten a lot of fame among the agitators, among the freedom fighters. And it seems that he joined not long ago, but he has done a lot of heroic adventure, capturing soldiers and armies and killing them, and advancing the cause of the Mau Mau objective, the Mau Mau people. So he was Mugo was jealous of that, and then Mugo was really not comfortable with the fame. It was like somebody came and took over all the praise that's supposed to be given to him and the other fighters, and then because of the reward, he betrayed Kihika. And then we saw that he later regretted it. Then we saw that most people also, including General Robinson and then Koina, two Mau Mau soldiers, believe Karanja was the one who betrayed Kihika. Karanja is also another fighter. And they plan to execute Karanja on the day of independence, because some of them believe that Karanja, was also the one that would betray Kihika, because Kihika was like the leader that was killed by the colonial masters as a result of betrayal by his own fellow fighters. And then we saw that Mugo, who was reluctant, who was not willing to give the speech, was not the only man from Taba who spent time in detention camp. We saw another one like a Gikonyo, who was also a well-respected carpenter, and then a member of the Mau Mau, who was also put in detention. And then there are other, like his wife was also maltreated. Before the camp, he was much in love with his wife. His wife is called Mumbi, and the sister is a sister of Kihika, who was betrayed and killed by the colonialists. So we saw that Gikonyo had won the love of many because of his own desire for the independence of Kenya. And then the story moved to Karanja's work at Gitima, a forest research station, where it was started by the British, and then he tried to cultivate the approval of the director of operation, which is Roger Thompson, who is stationed there with his wife Marjorie. So we saw that Thompson, who is also one of the colonialists, was once destined for an illustrious career, but it was derailed by a hunger strike and violence at Rira. The violence was as a result of the clash between the colonialists and the Mau Mau struggle fighters. So the camp where Mugo was also at Rira. So we saw also, as the story moved, that Thompson was at Gitima, and then he prepared to return to Britain because he does not want to be around when whites are no longer in charge of the Kenyan society. And then he was already planning to leave Kenya at that time. And we also see that Karanja did not join the freedom movement, but rather started to work for the white men. First, joining the Home Guard, which was set up by the colonial masters, and at the same time become a chief during the emergency period, where there was a state of emergency that the colonialists wanted to quench the desire and the quest for independence by the Kenyans. So we saw again the story moved to Mumbi, and Mumbi was distressed that her husband no longer loves her and comes to see Mugo. And then she confided in Mugo the story of how she and Thiongo fell in love and how sad she was when she was away in camp. And we also saw that Mumbi fell in love for Karanja's advances. Mumbi only fell in love for Karanja's advances when she heard Thiongo was returning and became disastrously happy. So we also see that she begged Moving on back, um, moving on. Sorry, I'm not going to be following what I try to summarize the plot in the slide, which after listening and reading this, you'll be able to understand it well. But at the same time, I did not follow the summary which I'm projecting to you directly, because as I read the story, I'm trying to bring the whole of the summary bit by bit for you. So let's move again. The story, we saw that on the day of Uhuru, we saw that it was raining and then at the same time sunny. People are joyful. All of them want to see Mugo, even though he has said he is not coming. And there are games and speeches. People were giving speeches, and there is also a spontaneous race. And Gikonyo and Karanja find themselves competing with each other. And we also saw that much as they competed in a race of Mumbi's attention long ago, because both of them fell in love or eyeing Mumbi for relationship before. So they stumble though, and Gikonyo break his arm and has to go to the hospital. Then we saw that one of the colonialists, General R, gives a speech instead of Mugo and calls for the traitor to step forward, assuming it will be Karanja. But Mugo comes out of the crowd and says it is he who did it. He feels a sense of freedom, at first quickly followed by terror. Then no one accosts Mugo, and the confused crowd part and let him go. They did not kill him because they were waiting to sacrifice Karanja, but rather Mugo came out. And then we saw that later General R and Koina come to arrest him and tell him he will have a private trial where the people of Kenya will not see what transpires. It will be between Mugo and the colonial court. So Mugo take peace with him. Mugo make peace and then decide he will accept any punishment that will be given to him. And then some of the villagers feel that Uhuru did not go well, that there is something wrong. Why is Karanja not sacrificed? And why is Mungo being arrested? So he is, we saw that Karanja head back to Gitima, and then he was unhappy and considered killing himself in front of a train. Ultimately, he decided against this. And then we also saw that Gikonyo wakes in the hospital where he has already injured himself. You know, during the competition, he breaks his arm. So Gikonyo wakes up in the hospital and finds himself ready to make amends with Mumbi, the wife of or his wife. And then when she visits him, he tells her he is ready to speak of the child he has assiduously ignored. And since he came back, she tells him, Mubinan tells him what did he say? Okay. Are you talking that it must wait until they can have a serious heartfelt discussion of their want and need? And then we saw that Gikonyo is happy and plan to carve a stool featuring an image of a pregnant Mumbi. And then the trial of Mugo started, and he was also as well convicted. So at the end of the story, we saw that Uhuru took place. The people got the independence, but because of the things that transpires, they were not so comfortable with what happened. The Uhuru did not bring much happiness and comfort as the people thought. And this was a chronicle. This is a chronicle. The novel is a chronicle of the struggle from the time of the colonialist administration in Kenya to the period of independence, like in Petals of Blood and some other writings of Ngugi Wa Thiong'o. You will see that he portrayed the post-independence disillusionment of the people of Kenya. They believe that Uhuru will bring favor, wealth, and comfort, but they were later disappointed that because the self-government there is no much difference between the self-government and the government of the colonialists, because the colonialists exploited the people of Kenya and took their resources and their natural gift to exported them to their own country. But now the self-government that is being piloted by the people of Kenya is also full of exploitation. The exploitation was not in a way that the colonialists unaware, because the colonialists, they were simply taking what belonged to the Kenyans to their own country. But now the Kenyans who are ruling the Kenyans are taking the resources, are appropriating to themselves, amassing them for their own people, instead of using it for the good of the masses. So it was corruption, greed, nepotism, and a lot of clientism happening in the government. So we saw that the people were dissatisfied. Even Mogo was not so happy. Gikonyo was relatively comfortable with the outcome, but what really happened to him at the end? So we are going to be discussing the character of Thiongo, Mumbi, Mugo, Kihika, and several other characters, and then the colonialists like General R. Robinson Thompson, and some other characters who also represent the colonialist interest in our subsequent lesson. So make sure you also subscribe and click the notification bell so that when the video of the analysis of the characters are uploaded, you will have a you will be notified, and then you will continue with your study. Okay, thank you.